Bobby Witt Jr. put on a show at the Derby last night, and I was there to see it live. I'll tell you my reaction in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you are a first-time listener and want to know a little bit more about me and this show, well, I am based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB, doing some hosting, co-hosting, and some producing as well. But when it comes to this podcast, when you click on this link, you know that you are getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball, whether we're in Kansas City or we're in Arlington or somewhere across the country. I was in San Francisco over the weekend, going on very minimal hours of sleep day to day here. So you can probably tell with the bags under my eyes here. But still, we're bringing you the content 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Love doing it, and especially love doing it when we're at an event like this, the All-Star Game at Globe Life Field for the first time. I was there last night. Such an exciting and fun home run derby. I know people had issues with the format, and there weren't as many home run hitters, but the way it concluded, the way it ended, I know not what Royals fans wanted, but I think for what the fans were waiting for there at the park, pretty much all you could ask for in the final round. But we'll get into that shortly, because before that, I want to let you know about our title sponsor in Booking.com. Yes, today's show is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, the right state can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. So last night, I get to Globe Life Field around 1 o'clock. They had press conferences in the afternoon. I left around 11:30. Wanted to make sure my flight got in time, so I got in around, I think 9 a.m., went back, recorded the podcast, got to the park. So it was a long day, but a fun day at that. And today is somewhat of the same, a little bit shorter, more field access today. Might have a chance to get a couple more interviews, maybe not. Kind of all depends on the schedule, because where I'm staying is about 30 minutes away from Arlington. So not just a quick pop on over. It's a little bit of a process to get down to Globe Life Field. But it was such a fun day to see a lot of the stars, not just baseball players, but in the media up close. Such a cool experience. Saw Scott Boras there, saw Ken Rosenthal there, saw Tim Kirchin there, saw Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz in their panel over there. There pretty much wasn't a single baseball icon that wasn't there. And that's the way it should be at the All-Star Game, and that's why I think it was so fun. But Bobby Witt Jr. Was placed in the outfield. They had these stands set up for everybody in the American League for about 45 minutes, and the National League had it for 45 minutes as well. But Bobby Witt Jr. had a pretty big scrum around him, and it was all talking about the home run derby. And what you can tell about Bobby Witt Jr., and I've gotten this feel going back to last year when we were down in the clubhouse, he's very much the same. There's not really a moment that's too big for him. There's not really anything that rattles him. And when he's getting asked about the derby, he was very calm in his answer. He didn't look nervous, didn't really overthink it. He said, I'm just going to have fun and let it rip. And yeah, I think a lot of players would say the same thing. Maybe some would get more technical with it. I mean, Pete Alonso lives for the home run derby. I would have expected more of a exact answer, how he prepares for it, what he does in between rounds. But Bobby Witt Jr. simply just said, I'm going to have fun and let it rip. That's what I'm looking forward to do. And I'm 20 miles, I think it was, from where I grew up, and it's going to be a homecoming for me, all that kind of stuff. I mean, you saw it all over social media yesterday. But then the actual home run derby happens. And I think leading up to it, I was under the impression that Gunnar Henderson was going to win this thing, or Pete Alonso was going to win this thing, because Gunnar Henderson, we know he's got the home run swing. Pete Alonso's done it twice before. I thought Marcell Ozuna was going to have a really good chance. But the closer we got to the start of the derby, there was this feel in the ballpark that Bobby Witt Jr. was going to do something special, that he was going to perform in the way that a lot of Royals fans thought he would perform. And I think we discussed this yesterday. He's not a hitter that you look at his swing and think that is the pure long home run swing. It's not a Aaron Judge swing. It's not an Ohtani swing. It's not a Barry Bonds swing. Nothing like that. It's not like McGuire or Sammy Sosa in the Derby. Nothing like that. It's a very powerful swing, and the ball jumps off his bat, and he's incredibly strong, but you just don't envision him as this 50, 60 home run hitting guy that we think Giancarlo Stanton was when he was in his prime and competing in home run derbies. But we had seen in 2019 at Nationals Park that he had won that derby against Rhys Hines, who's now hitting 470-foot blast for the Cincinnati Reds, and he was far smaller than he is right now. But back to that feel, this energy around the park was maybe we should start thinking that Bobby Witt Jr. is actually going to win this thing, that he does have a swing, that he is tailor-made for an event like this. And my whole opinion changed the minute I saw one BP. And there are, a lot of guys that go up there and BP and they can crush the ball. That's what you marvel at in an All-Star week, is that when these guys take BP, it doesn't matter if it's Ohtani or it's like Ryan McMahon of the Rockies. And by the way, Ryan McMahon is a damn good player, and he's crushing these balls out to right center field, opposite field home runs. So, yeah, I'm not going to get too caught up in the way the ball jumps off the bat. Honestly, the most impressed I was yesterday was Ketel Marte of the Arizona Diamondbacks during batting practice. He hit one that left the stadium, went out the door of the plaza, which would have cleared the second deck and then had to bounce past a few people. That's how hard he hit it. So he was the most impressive guy to watch during BP. But Bobby Witt Jr. goes up, he gets one round. I think I saw him take 12 pitches. 7 of them left. 7 of them left the yard. 4 of them were to the second deck. And I'm thinking, this is what the home run derby will be. It's batting practice balls just like that. And he only took 12. But it was the way the crowd oohed and awed. They were starstruck by this. I think everybody at that point went, he's going to at least make it to the semifinals. And he's more than likely going to make it to the finals. We saw Gunnar Henderson take BP. It was impressive, but not as impressive as that. Pete Alonso, same thing. Marcell Ozuna, same thing. So I started getting on this train of, wow, I think he may run into the most tonight. I think he may get upwards of 60 or maybe 65. And he only got to 50, which still, I believe, was the most of anybody in the Derby last night, despite falling to Teoscar Hernandez. But what was awesome about this event was that after that first round, I wasn't able to see the pitches from where I was sitting. I couldn't really get a good grasp as to where these pitches were coming in. Believe me, I heard all about it on social media, about his brother-in-law and the location at which he was throwing it. But what was so impressive was that people were saying he's not getting the best pitches, yet he's still doing the most damage. He did the third most damage. He was the 3 seed going into the semifinals with pitches that weren't really home run pitches. And I firmly believe Teoscar Hernandez won the Derby because his BP thrower was the best. He's just serving him up exactly where he wants him to be in the final round. That's what it eventually ended up winning him the home run derby. But still, it was this feeling of, man, I hope 20 is not going to be the 6th most. I hope 20 is not going to be the 5th most, and we only see Bobby Witt Jr. for one round. And it wasn't, because a lot of guys struggled to hit. Pete Alonso only got 12. Gunnar Henderson finished dead last with 11. And, Adolis Garcia didn't hit as many as I thought he would. So you get to that second round, and he hit 17. And he's going up against Jose Ramirez. And I think, well, knowing Jose Ramirez, what he does to Royals players, what he does to Royals pitchers, he's going to win this, isn't he? Well, he ran out of gas, and he only got 11 or 12. So he goes on to the finals, and the stage was set perfectly. I thought Globe Life Field put on quite a production for it. But it was this great feeling of, once Adolis Garcia got out, the whole crowd shifted their focus to, we're cheering for the hometown kid here. We're cheering for Bobby Witt Jr. over a Los Angeles Dodgers. That's nothing against the Dodgers, but everybody knows the Dodgers and the Yankees players are not going to get the love that the underdog team is going to, or the hometown kid is going to. And in that final round, that bonus round, That was the loudest the crowd was all night. That was louder than the ovation they gave Adolis Garcia. It was louder than the introductions. I mean, people got into it. After he got that ball that was 450 plus feet that gave him the extra out, I think everybody was starting to feel the buzz of this could be the walk-off home run derby that we were all hoping for. Now, he came damn close, feet from tying Teoscar Hernandez and either forcing a swing off or winning the damn thing. But still, it was such a fun night. And to perform like that on that big of a stage, whatever expectation you set for Bobby Witt Jr., he's going to surpass it. He's not going to live up to it. He's going to surpass that expectation. And last night, he did just that in the home run derby, hoping to see many more home run derbies from him in the future, or maybe Jack Caglione here in a few years can be the Royals representative for the home run derby. We'll take our first break of the show. When we come back, I'm going to give you some takeaways that I had from Media Day as all the stars were lined up for us for about a few hours down on the field at Globe Life Field. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to a few of the sponsors today, starting with FanDuel. I love sports, and you know I love them so much, so I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs came to a close a few months ago, we get fewer and fewer games outside of just baseball. Of course, I know we have college football right around the corner where a lot of people love to go and bet, but the sports just aren't sportsing like we all want them to. But FanDuel is letting us keep the sports going whenever we want. All I have to do is just open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And with tonight being the All-Star game, maybe throw some money down on an MVP winner. I know Salvador Perez got a few picks, so maybe that would be the outlet that you'd want to turn to. Also want to give a shout out to PrizePicks. And with PrizePicks, it's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy baseball. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get it on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. And you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks, and you can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to helping your lineup hit or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. I thought the coolest part of yesterday was not so much watching the Derby from afar. That's always going to steal the show. But it was this feeling yesterday of walking into the park and getting the opportunity among 300 or 400 media members to get, whoever you wanted for interviews, not one-on-ones. So that's the thing I did need to update everybody on. Too many people there. You're not getting one-on-ones. I mean, just when I thought I was about to get Seth Lugo for a one-on-one, like 6 reporters came up. They're from all over the place, not just America, all over the globe. It's a great opportunity to meet tons of people, to know a lot of people's background. But as for getting interviews, yeah, it can be really tough too. So we're not going to have that. Hopefully you can keep following along, though, on my Twitter account at JohnnyJ_15. Tons of video, tons of photos, tons of updates from Arlington for the All-Star Week. But the Media Day takeaways, one, the Royals were popular. And I think that would be something in the last 3 or 4 years you would not really say, even if they had just one representative or maybe 2 when they had Salvador Perez and Whit Merrifield. I don't think they would have had as big of a scrum because A, the Royals weren't in any contention, and B, the players were the same ones over and over again. Salvador Perez is always there. And, somebody like Whit Merrifield, after the first All-Star game was, okay, well, he's back. And I could tell that during the media scrums, there were guys that weren't getting talked to a ton. I mean, Brian Reynolds on the National League side, he didn't have a ton of people over there, but he was also 2 rows down from Shohei Ohtani, who had about 150 people over there. So it's not even worth going over there because you're not going to get a good angle. You're not going to get a good shot. Aaron Judge was placed not far from where Shohei Ohtani eventually went and sat down. But that was my first takeaway, was that the Royals were a little bit more popular. People wanted to talk to Bobby Witt Jr. He was almost front and center on the backside of where they'd set up all these little stands for the players. Salvador Perez was a hot commodity. Cole Reagans and Lugo, they were right next to each other. And it was cool to see people going up there and asking, about their season, about their grips on certain pitches. Seth Lugo loves talking about that. I had a chance to ask Seth Lugo if, he's achieved his goals or he's on pace to achieve the goals he had set at the beginning of the year. And, he told me, well, my goals are end of the season. They're not half season. Today is more so just a bonus that, it's the All-Star game. It's my first, but I've got goals for the end of the season. And I asked Cole Reagans about, big crowds, pitching in front of big crowds. And this reminded me exactly of Zach Greinke, because I think Zach Greinke said the exact same thing of, do you notice big crowds? And Cole said to me, I told somebody yesterday that I'd never know how many people are there until I leave the game. And I look up into the stands and I go, oh, that's a pretty big crowd. And he's going to maybe be pitching tonight in front of a huge crowd. He just pitched in front of a huge crowd against Boston. He's done that numerous times this year, whether it be at Kauffman Stadium for opening day or it be in New York against the Mets. I remember that was a big crowd. There were a lot of places he pitched where there were sold-out crowds or close to it. But that's the ace mentality. I don't really pay attention to it. The crowds don't rattle me, and the crowd certainly won't rattle him if he gets in there tonight for the American League. The other part of it that I still was taken back by was at one point in the day, I was wrapping up. I had to go charge my phone. Actually, that's when you're using your phone all day, you're using hotspots and stuff like that. It's tough to get through 10, 11, 12 hours of content without having to do a charge. So I'm walking back into the press area to go down in the dugout, and then you got to go up back on the elevator. So it would have been quite a trek. But I'd seen this group of reporters that were kind of just sitting on the side. Like there was an angle to go to the dugout. And I'm thinking, well, clearly we can't go down there yet. I don't know for what the reason is. And then I see the player emerge from the dugout, and it's Shohei Ohtani. And everybody treats this as this Hollywood red carpet type deal. And it was the closest I've ever been to Shohei Ohtani. I was 3 or 4 feet from Shohei Ohtani. And that, to me, to see this icon, this spectacle of the sport that close, and to see everybody almost freak out over the fact that he's just walking onto the field to go to media days, it's one of those moments where you're in the presence of greatness. And that's not to put too much into just seeing a player that close, but it's the way every media outlet looks towards him. When he went and sat down at his chair, there were people sprinting to get just an angle, a good camera shot of him sitting down. He was going to be there for 45 minutes, but people needed to have the first opportunity to get over there. And he's one of those guys that grabs the sport. He is one of the guys that is changing the sport. And maybe you like him, maybe you don't. I think he's fantastic for the game of baseball. I think baseball is promoting him well. But as I think I had mentioned earlier in this episode, there was media reporters from the U.S., there were media reporters from Japan, there were media reporters from Mexico, from the Dominican Republic, from Puerto Rico. I mean, all over. It's a great melting pot of people down at the All-Star game. And I think that's what makes it fantastic is you got all these different backgrounds and people that care more about certain players. And Shohei Ohtani was that one player that every reporter from every country needed to go see, needed to get video of, needed to ask a question to. And that to me was a star-struck moment where, I've been in big league clubhouses. I've interviewed players before. I've interviewed coaches in different sports, not endless amounts. I'm not going to sit here and say I've got 40 years of experience, but that was one moment I was kind of thinking to myself, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to see somebody that is such a spectacle in the sport, and that 40, 50 years down the road, he's going to be that guy that you hear about from multiple people. If I watched him play in person, he was a marvel. You got to see him up close. And yeah, it's not like I talked to him, not like I shook his hand or anything, but I don't know, as a baseball fan, it was pretty cool to see Shohei Ohtani that up close and personal at Media Days yesterday. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show, but before we do that, one shout out to Locked On Sports Today. It is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When we come back, the All-Star Game is tonight. Who do I think will get in for the Royals, and how do I think it'll go? I'll tell you next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to give a shout out to our title sponsor in Booking.com. Yeah, with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals cities with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball's rival cities. And like I said, I've been in Arlington now for a few days. I was in San Francisco, planning another trip to get down to San Diego here in about a month or two. You will guess correctly if you guess that I'm going through Booking.com to make sure I'm taking care of my hotels, make sure I find the right stay. Maybe you could look over a beautiful ballpark. I know I'm staying a little bit further away, but it's the way it happens, though, when an All-Star week is there. A lot of hotels are booked up, but Booking.com is going to have me covered. So the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com or on the site or on the Booking.com app. Tonight is the big show. It is something that we are all going to be tuned into. It is going to grab the attention of not just baseball fans, but sports fans everywhere, because you've got all the best in one location. You're going to have great matchup like Paul Skeens maybe facing Aaron Judge. You're going to have Ohtani facing maybe Tarik Skubal. It's going to be a blast. And compared to previous years, the Royals are going to be well represented. The Royals are going to be in games tonight, or in the game. I shouldn't say in games. They're going to be front and center. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to get quite the exposure tonight. Salvador Perez is going to come in after Adley Rutschman starts the game. Seth Lugo, I think, is going to appear in the third or the fourth inning. That's my guess. I'd imagine they'll go Corbin Burns, then they'll go Tarik Skubal, then they'll go Seth Lugo. Or maybe they go Seth Lugo before Tarik Skubal. Who really knows? It's up to Bruce Bochy at that point. Cole Reagans, I think, can get in the game. I've talked about this in a couple of interviews since being down here. It would take a unique situation because I'm not sure they're going to throw 4 starters. And if they do throw 4 starters, I'm not sure 2 of them would come from the Royals. I would love to see Reagans out there. Maybe it could be a lefty-lefty matchup. He gets to face Ohtani. I think that would be awesome. But overall, I know 3 are going to play for the Royals. I'm not sure Cole Reagans, though, will have an opportunity to get in because there's so many guys that are going to get into this game. And with the Royals already having a starter, feels a little bit less likely. And I think Seth Lugo would have a chance to get in more so than Cole Reagans. Though Bruce Bochy did manage Cole Reagans last year, he might have that connection a little bit to get him into the game. Tonight, though, I think is great, for baseball. When you've got a brand new ballpark, it's 4 years old, I believe, maybe 5 years old. I can't quite remember. And you got baseball in a potential spot of really promoting the game in the best possible way. There is something about this sport that is always going to captivate an audience. Whether you are a diehard baseball fan, you're a semi-baseball fan, or you don't watch it all, the All-Star Game is going to be what people tune into because you recognize everybody that's coming up to the plate. I know baseball does not do a good job of promoting its players. I think they've done a good job down here. Outside the stadium, on billboards, on buildings, there are faces and faces and faces and faces of the stars of the sport. And that's important because you have people walking in, you go, oh, there's the player I root for. There's a guy that I love. Oh, that's Ellie De La Cruz. Oh, that's Aaron Judge. You know, if you're a Rangers fan, there's Marcus Semien. If you're a Royals fan, I looked up and I saw Bobby Witt Jr. on the front of Globe Life Field. Paul Skeens, Juan Soto. You continue to promote that way. And in Ballpark Village, you've got these guys plastered everywhere. They are up on walls. They are in the bathroom. It sounds crazy, but the little pictures in the frames, promoting the All-Star game, it's in the bathroom. It's above the stall in the men's room, right? You've seen that before at stadiums, so you can see, the guys that are going to be there. What's going on. The Derby's going to happen. The All-Star game's going to happen. So baseball's got a great opportunity to promote tonight because I think there's a lot of great young players that they can sink their hooks into and say, here is the faces of the sports. Here are the faces of the sport. I think it's great that Paul Skeens is starting because even though Paul Skeens doesn't even have 100 innings this year, he's the captivating guy. You want to watch Paul Skeens pitch because he is dominating the big leagues and he barely was in the minor leagues. So instead of just going, well, he didn't really earn it, he's captivating right now. He is going to generate an audience. He is going to generate ratings. We want Paul Skeens versus Aaron Judge. What I also love about this, the point B, a little subhead here, the Royals have guys that are going to captivate an audience, that are going to drive up ratings. People want to see Bobby Witt Jr. People want to see Salvador Perez. People want to see Cole Reagans, or maybe they want to see Seth Lugo. It's not just the throw-in anymore of, well, we need to send a representative. Hey, Salvi, you go on down to the All-Star game. That wouldn't drive up the ratings because, well, we've seen Salvador Perez at a ton of All-Star games. We know how good he is. This year, you got Bobby there for the first time. You got Gunnar Henderson there. You've got Paul Skeens there. You've got Garrett Crochet there. I can't wait to see him pitch tonight. You got Tarek Skubal there. You got, Stephen Kwan there. Guy who's one of the best, American League hitters out there. Juan Soto, still been around for been to many All-Star games, but still incredibly young. Aaron Judge, Ohtani, they're going to be the main focal points of the American League and the National League. But that's what you're working with here. There is a golden opportunity tonight to put on an incredible show. And I hope it is a one-run game in the bottom of the ninth and somebody walks off somebody. Now, I know that you're rooting for the American League. If you're a Royals fan, maybe you don't care at all. There's really nothing that goes into the All-Star game anymore. It used to determine, home field advantage in the World Series. Now it's just there to enjoy it and have fun, to be good for the players, a relaxed environment. I can't wait for the introductions tonight. I can't wait for the crowd reaction to the Royals getting introduced, if there's going to be a loud roar or if they're not going to be as impressive or that I think they'll be. Last night, Bobby Witt Jr. got a pretty impressive roar from the crowd when he was introduced and when he was introduced in the finals. Maybe that won't happen again when they're introducing the All-Stars. I can't wait to see who gets booed and all of those things. But overall, it's been such a fun week. It's been a fun couple of days. I mean, I got to go to Oracle Park on Friday and Saturday evenings to watch the Giants game. Gorgeous ballpark, one of the best I've ever been to, right there when you have McCovey Cove. And then, get on a flight early Monday morning, get out here, go out to the ballpark. It has been baseball-oriented last 4 to 5 days. And as I said to open up the show, going on fumes at this point, running out of gas. But tomorrow, we'll be back to normal. We'll be in our normal podcasting room. Not going to have any connection issues. We'll be breaking down more of the All-Star week, more of what's coming up for the Royals. The second half is a few days away from beginning, but still the All-Star game tonight is going to be a blast. I'll be down there. Tons of coverage once again, and hopefully getting some good video for you guys. But that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. You can always find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15 and find us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey, and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. Tomorrow, we're going to have an evening time episode. We'll recap everything over the last couple of days. And as I just said, look ahead to the final days of the All-Star break and that first series for the Royals. But before we say one last goodbye, Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now, available on the free Fire TV Channels app. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Kansas City, but until then, you take it easy.